feel like I haven't been underground in about 2 months. After my last cave dive down at Ruby Doo, it started raining, and it pretty much hasn't stopped since. So all the caves have been blown out, but we finally have a beautiful springtime morning here in St. Louis. It's about 50 degrees this morning. Should get up in the mid 70s by this afternoon. Caves are still blown out, but the mines are open. So meeting up with a buddy, we're headed down to one of the mines here. And we've been trying to locate the end of one of the lines. We found a couple of them. There's several different passages, but we haven't had any luck finding the south tunnel end of the line. So we're hoping to get down there today. We got several scooters, lots of bailout gas, planning about a 3-hour dive or so, and we're hoping to tie into the end of the line and see if we can make it go any further. So should be an adventure. Come along for the ride. Let's go. All right, made it down here. Getting all geared up. Beautiful day. That's where we're headed. Come along for a ride. Let's go dive. So here we are headed into the mine, and as I mentioned in the intro, we are carrying quite a bit of bailout gas with us for this dive. I've got a 40 of 100%, which I just dropped prior to this clip starting here. I've got a 80 of air. My buddy has an 80 of 50 and an 80 of air. We're planning to drop them about every 15 minutes or so because we think it's going to take us about an hour to get back where we're headed. So the plan with the 50% is to drop that off at the third tee because it's at about 40, 45 or so feet, and it's a good spot to leave that. So our bailout gas plan was to drop a bottle about every 15 minutes. So about 15 minutes ago, we dropped the 50% at that tee that I mentioned. We're about 30 minutes or so into the dive now. So I'm about to drop my aluminum 80 of air. So happy to get rid of that extra drag. So my buddy still has another aluminum 80 of air on him that he'll drop in about 15 minutes or so. Maybe take it a little longer since when it's a tad over 15-minute mark. So just a note on the computer overlay that you're seeing in the bottom right-hand corner. So that data is taken from my Petrol 3 that's connected to the rebreather. So the PO2 reading that you're seeing is my PO2, the depth, NDLs, all that data is from my computer. The video here is going to switch back and forth between my perspective and my buddy's perspectives. We're both running GoPros on our helmets. So this is my buddy's camera view right now that you're seeing. So any data though that you're seeing is all coming off of my computer. So it's not any of his data. Syncing up the data and a bunch of GoPro clips is not an exact science. So if you do happen to see a computer on the front of my scooter, it may be a minute or so discrepancy between what you're seeing and the overlay. Part of that was because the computers kind of started at a little bit different times, but also you can't really sync down to the second with this stuff. So here's an overlay of the map. So there's the third tee there. We've kind of made it down this south tunnel, and we believe we're past what has actually been mapped out, and we're on line that doesn't show up on that map because the map goes about 3,600 feet or so. And at this point, we're just a little bit past that, according to the cookies that we're seeing on the line. So a goal for this dive was to just find that end of that south tunnel line. Since it wasn't anything on the map, we weren't really sure what was beyond that. As we got back there a little further, there's quite a bit of additional passages that have been lined that's not on any map that we've been able to find. So if anybody wanted a project of surveying, they've probably got their work cut out ahead of them if they wanted to ever survey this mine. So we ended up finding what we think is the end, and it actually ended up being a little circuit. So we got to another tee. I probably used over a dozen cookies to get to this point, but I was out of cookies, so my buddy dropped his, and we took a right. We came back around, and we saw his cookie again. So it took us a second to kind of realize what was going on there. At least it took me a second to realize. I didn't know if it was there from a previous dive he had done. But then realized that it was a fresh cookie, and we had just completed the circuit. So that was kind of cool to see. And it was at about the 65-minute or so mark when we hit that. Unfortunately, neither one of us had our cameras running for that moment. But this is a cool section here. So you can kind of see it looks like a mist in the water. I'm told it's a hydrogen sulfide layer. It just kind of reminded me of Halocline down in Mexico where the salt and fresh water meet. But this is obviously all fresh water. So it just kind of floats around in your way. And my buddy was down below it. I got up in it to play with it. Sort of like I do the Haloclines in Mexico. And of course, coming back, it wasn't there because we had disturbed it so bad with the scooters, but it was still fun to see that. That was the only section I've seen that so far in this mine. So this, I don't believe this was the circuit that we're marking here. This is just another offshoot line. But I believe it was the next one that we do after this, which unfortunately neither one of us were running our cameras for. There's some more of that hydrogen sulfide layer. So in addition to all the bailout extra gas that we took, you'll see my buddy's also towing a backup scooter. We were pretty far back at this point, probably close to 5,000 feet. It took us an hour on scooters. So if something were to happen to one of our scooters, we definitely wouldn't want to make the swim out of there. Towing wouldn't be as fun either. So I was really glad he bought that backup scooter. Fortunately, we did not need it. Both of our scooters performed flawlessly. So we're getting back to a spot where neither one of us had ever been. So we're getting pretty close to the end of that south tunnel where the circuit starts. Unfortunately, didn't get us dropping that cookie or picking it up on camera. But it's maybe 2 minutes after this. So as you can see, we've switched positions and now I'm leading out. So when we picked up that cookie from the circuit, we did switch positions just as with proper cave diving etiquette. So that's how I'm fairly confident neither one of us got that cookie on video, because he was leading going in and I was leading after we picked that cookie up. So I've left pretty much all of the video unedited that we took on our way out, because we did kind of stop at a few different spots and look around on our way out. We were cooking pretty good going in, not really looking around too much. Just dropping our cookies at each of the tees and heading in. So we do take our time coming out a little bit more just to have a look around, and we had a little bit of deco to do anyway, so might as well off gas in the mine as much as we can. But that's all I have to say for this dive. Like I said, I left all the video in, so you can stick around and enjoy it if you like. See our dive on the way out, and thanks for watching. Oh, nice. Yeah. It's on. It's on. Is it on? It's on. On. It's on. It's on. It's on. Oh, nice. Yeah.